We're live in we're live in the Silent Patriot Speak with your one and only, and with Jerry Evans for 14th District of Illinois for Congress. What's up, Jerry?
Hey, Tanya, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. Tanya, it's an honor to be on your program. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Now, Jerry, tell the people who you are, your background, what your campaign stands for.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for asking again. Thanks so much for having me on. So to all of you out there, it is great to be here. I am running for U.S. Congress in the 14th District to defeat Lauren Underwood. And so right now, just so you know who I am a small businessman and entrepreneur. I started a music school from scratch that has about 275 to 300 students. I have a beautiful wife named Lisa, as well as an amazing son, Michael. And we are so blessed to do what we love to do every day. And my wife and I were both millennials, and we really, really care a lot about making sure that we keep America great and continue to protect the amazing foundations that America has. And yes, America is great, and we really believe that, and we're so thankful for America. And we want to go ahead and continue to fight to defend America and protect America and continue to make America better. And so I'm standing up to go ahead and run for U.S. Congress to go ahead and protect the unborn and be really focused on the pro-life message, as well as supporting the president, Donald J. Trump. On top of that, I want to go ahead and defend the Second Amendment and protect the Second Amendment, as well as fight for lower taxes, stopping illegal immigration, focusing on fixing all the different healthcare problems in the healthcare industry, as well as stopping human trafficking and protecting religious liberties. And so I'm so thankful to have an opportunity to do that. We're very excited about where things are at with the campaign. Things are looking good for us. But all that being said, the things that I would say would make me unique or really signify myself is, number one, I'm a millennial. And with a strong record of accomplishment in the private sector. With a small business, I bought a commercial property. I own my own home. I've got a successful marriage, as well as I'm a successful father. On top of that, I'm a Christian, and I'm absolutely unashamed of that. Anyone who has a faith should not be ashamed to go ahead and just boldly live out their faith in America. On top of that, again, I really support the president, Donald J. Trump. And I'm a businessman, and I'm an outsider, as well as I'm strongly pro-life. So those are 5 things that really make me unique. But go ahead. Thanks so much, Tanya. Thanks for listening. What are your thoughts on that?
So when you say you're Christian, that means I'm a Christian too. I'm Christian Orthodox. My ancestors come from Mesopotamia, Iraq. The wars that we had with Iraq, which we never had to go to war. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I missed part of what you said because of the phone line. So again, are you from Iraq, or you said you're from?
No, my ancestors, generations ago, 7 generations or something.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I
gotcha. Okay.
What's your thoughts on the war that USA had with Iraq, which should never meddled with Iraq in the first place?
Yeah, I think obviously if you go back to the early 2000s, it looks like there was definitely some faulty intelligence that misled a lot of countries. There were a lot of other countries, along with America, that were misled, thinking that there were some really serious things going on with Saddam Hussein and weapons of mass destruction. So unfortunately, it was a lot of bad intelligence that began the process of leading America into the war. So what I would say is that, America's first priorities, number one, is to defend itself with its national security. That's our number one thing that we have to do. We always have to focus on how do we protect ourselves from terror threats, how do we protect ourselves from foreign influences that will try to hurt us or affect our elections. We want to go ahead and focus on, protecting American citizens from any other attack that any other enemy would try to bring against us. So that's our number one thing. We always need to focus on that. Then, if for some reason there's a time that's necessary to engage in something in a foreign area, then that could very well be possible. But obviously, unfortunately, with what happened with Iraq, that was based on faulty intelligence, and unfortunately, that misled us with that war. But I think what's important for us right now, in today's day and age, is to protect America, number one, and then secondly, to stop terrorism. So if you look at what President Trump has done, where he's completely obliterated ISIS, that is a huge win for America, and that is a huge win for the world. And that's what we should be focusing on, is obliterating ISIS, making sure they don't come back, and then focusing on any way that we can, leaving areas that we don't need to be in, so that other countries can have more self-autonomy. Again, as long as they're not growing terrorist threats that are trying to attack America.
But Jerry, this war with Iraq was going on since the late 70s. That's what I believe. Since Bush 41 was CIA. It's been going on for a long time. Remember the war in 91? Or 90?
Yes, I do.
That time you were, how old were you?
So I was born in 1983, so I was somewhere around 8 or 9, depending upon when my birthday was. So I was a young guy.
I was around 9 or 10 that time. We're just a couple years apart. You're
sure.
You're like almost my younger sister's age.
Yeah.
So, Jerry, there's a couple other people running against you for District 14.
Yeah.
What do you offer more for people to lean towards you than to lean towards the other people?
Yeah, great question. I really appreciate you asking that, Tanya. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 5 things that make me unique.
Yes.
That combination of things that makes me unique compared to the other people in the Republican primary. And there are some of the opponents that might have 1 or 2 or 3 of these things, but no one's going to have these 5 things. So here we go. Get ready for it. Get ready to write these puppies down. These are really important. So first off, I'm a millennial and with a strong record of accomplishment. Like I said, I've started a business from scratch. I own a mortgage or own a home. I'm a successful husband and father. So I'm a millennial with a strong record of accomplishment. The second thing is that I'm very strongly pro-life. Pro-life isn't just something that I say, but pro-life is something that I really, really believe in. I really want to go ahead and protect the unborn, and I want to do that strongly. I'm very strongly pro-life. Thirdly, I'm a very strong supporter of the President, Donald J. Trump. And so I'm so thankful for what the president has done with focusing on having a great economy with record lows in unemployment, focusing on a great pro-life and pro-family message, accomplishing prison reform, and so many other things, and then being tough with other countries that have been tough with us. And so I'm really thankful for the president. Obviously, number 4, I want to go ahead and let everyone know that I'm an outsider, that I've never held political office before, so I'm not tied up with influences from Washington or Springfield in any way, but instead I actually want to go ahead and just live a life of self-sacrifice the same way that Jesus did. And then lastly, I think one of the notable things is that I'm a Christian. I'm unashamed of that. And I really want to focus on making sure that other people can live out their faith or live out their philosophy with freedom. And so those are things that are really, that combination of things is really distinctive to me. But also, here's one last thing for everyone to know is that ultimately, we want to defeat Lauren Underwood. That's ultimately the goal. And we want to defeat Lauren Underwood with the ability to actually then implement the right laws and the right legislation in Congress. And so when you look at my candidacy, I'm going to let you know something very bold, is that right now, there is actually no strategic way that Lauren Underwood can beat me in the general election. And that sounds like a bold statement, but strategically, I believe that's a true statement, that she does not have a realistic path to beat me. And we have the necessary things to beat her. And so if someone's looking for a millennial who's roughly the same age as Lauren Underwood, and by the way, I'm the candidate in the race who's the closest in age to Lauren Underwood. And if they're looking for someone who's got fresh ideas but also is a conservative person that supports the president and is going to be strong to protect the pro-life movement, I think you found that in me.
Okay, are you ready for some hard questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's just say you get the position, you're in D.C. right now, and both party lines are fighting, are quarreling amongst the current problems that's going on in the USA. Let's just say the immigration policy loopholes, the prescription lowering, just 2 examples. What can you do? What can you do to bring both parties together?
Yeah, great question. I think first off, I would say I'm not going to sacrifice my principles, my pro-life principles, my principles to support the president and his agenda, protecting the Second Amendment, protecting the First Amendment, and stopping illegal immigration, and a number of other things. I'm not going to let go of my principles. But here's the one thing that I think is extremely, extremely important for being successful and bringing people together, and that's listening. And that's listening with humility. And if you think about it, when you come in the room,
yes,
and you just simply remember that you don't know everything, just remember that, and then you just listen. Yes. And you listen with humility, that makes a difference. What that does is that changes the tone in the room. what that does is it makes other congressmen and other congresswomen feel heard, that they can go ahead and get their points across. And for me, I want to let you know that I really, really appreciate listening. That when I'm on the campaign trail and I'm talking with constituents, or potentially when I'm working with my business, talking with my employees, I really care a lot about listening. And I'm going to focus on listening, and listening with a humility that I myself don't know everything. That there are things that I'm going to go ahead and hear as new things from other people. So if you approach it with listening and approach it with humility, it changes the tone in the room, good things happen, and you can build consensus and find a way to stop illegal immigration, or to fix all the problems with healthcare, or to make sure we can protect the Second Amendment from bad gun laws that that would infringe upon it, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Now, what are your strong points?
Yeah, great question. And I would say this, I think there's a number of things I could say, but just to make sure I really understand where you're going with this, Tanya, can you clarify your question?
Your strong points, like as you and a person, what are your strong points?
Yeah, so I think my strong points as a person, as a candidate, is first off, I talked about listening and having humility, but the second thing is, my wife and I, when we decided to go ahead and go through the process to have me go ahead and step up and run for Congress, this wasn't about ego for us. It wasn't about self-interest for us. It wasn't about fame or fortune or money or anything like that. It wasn't about any of that. Instead, it was just simply about living a life of self-sacrifice to serve other people. Because as a Christian myself, who's done missionary work and trained other missionaries, I understand what it's like to make the decisions to say, I'm willing to give up everything just so I can spread a good message to people to change their lives. And that's what's worth it to me. For me, going after trying to be as rich as possible, that's not worth it. It isn't. It isn't worth it. Going after getting as much fame as possible, it's not that lifestyle. It's not worth it. It's not satisfying. What's satisfying to me is actually serving God and serving Jesus, but also serving people around me and being a part of something bigger than myself. And so even though my name is on the ballot, Jerry Evans is on the ballot, it's ultimately not about me. It's about living with the right values and getting things done and serving the constituents and serving America.
Jerry,
so I think that's one thing I can toss to you. But go ahead, Tanya.
Jerry, I was kind of hoping you'd say this would be for the future of my son, Michael.
Yeah, you know what? And that is also part of it as well, is that we want to go ahead and protect the future. We want to, stop the fight against socialism. We want to go ahead and protect free speech. We want to protect parental rights so that my son Michael can also have a really good future. So that is definitely a part of it, Tanya. You're very right.
Yeah, what do you think about Bernie running for office?
Yeah, so Bernie should never be president. Bernie Sanders should never be president. In fact, he really shouldn't be a senator at all. Right now, Bernie Sanders has continually advocated for socialist policies that are extremely destructive and attack the very foundations of America. He's advocated for policies that go against the successful policies of President Donald J. Trump. So President Donald J. Trump is doing amazing things in office with his economic and legislative agenda. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Bernie, who's advocating for policies that would hurt those good things that have happened. And then you also look at Bernie Sanders, who, for some reason, which I can't explain, continues to, at different times, praise or compliment dictators
and like Nelson
in communist or socialist regimes. And I just can't seem to make any sense of it. I don't know why he seems to do that. And then very lastly, he often will mislead people. And he will talk about his concept of democratic socialism. And he will talk about specific policies that would be socialist policies, but then he'll talk about places like, Denmark.
Yeah.
Or maybe, Denmark or maybe Norway. And when you look at those different countries, and in Scandinavia, you actually realize that, hey, those countries that are successful that he sometimes refers to are actually not socialist countries. They're actually capitalist countries that often, get this, those countries often have more economic freedoms than America.
Yes.
And economic freedom is capitalism. What? Socialism is where the government takes control over things. So there are countries that Bernie Sanders talks about that actually have more freedom than America. And he's misleading people to think that is socialism and trying to take people down the wrong path.
What?
And I'm 100% against Bernie, and he should not be running for president. He should actually be out of office right now.
What about China? He always praises China.
Yeah, and so I think that's disappointing. I think it's disappointing. Anytime that Bernie Sanders praises a socialist or communist regime for having socialist or communist policies, that's not right. He shouldn't do that, and he shouldn't be going out there doing that because those things are destructive. They hurt people. They take away freedoms. They hurt families. They hurt fathers and mothers and children, and hurt opportunity for them. And so again, Bernie has this tendency to praise communist or socialist leaders that have hurt a lot of people or even murdered people. And if you look at Cuba,
Oh yeah.
How he praised Castro and what Castro did and hurt his dissidents.
They take the people's property and shoot them right on the property.
Yeah, it's horrible what Cuba's done.
What the fuck?
It's horrible what other socialist regimes have done.
Yeah.
And I know that Bernie has praised Russia a lot
exactly.
for their public programs, even though especially in the past there were more socialists or more communists in the past, and I think it's crazy. He should not be praising them for those things, and he even praises talking about how bread lines are fair. That if everyone's in a bread line, at least it's kind of fair. And so that's not an exact quotation, but that's kind of the general thought he's given to people, and I think it's extremely, extremely sad. It's crazy.
Okay, now since Trump. When Trump was running in 2016, did he get your vote?
Yes, I did vote for the president. I did vote for President Donald J. Trump in 2016.
Like I did, Dave did, a lot of people I know did.
Yep.
So, were you always a Republican or a Democrat?
So I've actually been a consistent Republican voter all my life, and my principles very, very much align with conservative principles in the Republican Party, and so I very much am someone who's been consistent on that front, and really care about those policies that would be conservative, that preserve the foundations of America, and also would be supportive of policies that the president has implemented as conservative policies.
Do you have a past president that is your favorite?
Pardon me?
Do you have a president of the past that is your favorite?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, there's a number of great presidents out there that I think have done some really amazing things. I think there's two that I'm reminded of. Number one is that I think Ronald Reagan was a reformer. He was an actor and then got into governing the state of California, and then came along and really did a great job as a president. He was able to build consensus. He was able to accomplish a conservative record. He was able to accomplish a lot of things that really helped America, as well as lower taxes and really helping the economy. Now, one other thing is, I know that George Washington is the classic person that people will point to, and we'll talk about, but if you look at George Washington and the sacrifices that he made and the boldness and courage that he made when he was in the army helping America gain its freedom from England.
Oh, yeah.
And then what he did in office when he first began to help our nation become founded and formed, I think it's really incredible. And so I very much appreciate the sacrifices he made. And obviously I know another common person is Abraham Lincoln. And, Abraham Lincoln fought tirelessly to stop slavery, even though people, kept encouraging him to say, hey, just go ahead and stop the war and just focus on stopping the war. He really wanted to carry out the agenda of stopping slavery, and I'm so glad that he did.
Then Abe Lincoln wrote the 13th Amendment. Then he was killed on April 15th, I believe, of 1865. Then December 24th of 1865, 6 Confederate soldiers created the Ku Klux Klan in Polsky, Tennessee. The KKK?
Yeah, I'm definitely aware of the Ku Klux Klan. It's a horrible organization that should never exist. And everyone who's ever been involved needs to go ahead and just repent for being a part of that because it's a horrible organization. I think
that was like the start of socialism in the USA. That's what I believe.
I'm not familiar with every aspect of it, but one thing for you to know, Tanya, is that my wife, she's half Asian, and actually my brother actually happens to be black himself.
That's cool.
And so we really, I really care about racial relations. I really care a lot about making sure that all men and women are treated equally, because we're created equal. And I want to make sure that people know that they should be treated honorably. And I'm so 100% against Ku Klux Klan. It's a horrible organization, and I would say it's a demonic organization. And if anyone's ever been involved with it, they need to get out as fast as possible. And I think we need more people getting involved to go ahead and fight to go ahead and not only protect the free economy and fight against socialism, because you mentioned the word socialism there, but also I think we need to be considering to have people that are fighting to go ahead and honor people who are of different ethnicities and different races than them. In the same way that I honor my brother or I honor my wife because they are different races and ethnicities than me. We need to make sure we're doing that across America. So that we're all appreciating each other and appreciating the great things that each ethnicity and race brings to America and the world.
Just one thing, that everybody has one color. We all bleed red. We all bleed red.
Yep.
We all
yeah,
one
we do.
color.
We all have red blood.
We're all red-blooded. Okay,
yeah.
Another thing. So I've been bringing this up for years and years on social media. What is your thoughts on bringing prescriptions back and made in the USA?
And just to make sure I heard you correctly, you're talking about making it easier to have prescription drugs made in the USA. Did I hear you correctly?
Oh, okay. So back in early millennium, Bush and then Obama continued selling off the U.S. pharmacies, U.S. drugs to China. Now, what do you think about taking it from China and bringing it back to the USA?
Well, what I'd say is this: I'm a free market person, and I really care a lot about a free economy and giving people freedom to do amazing things. And when you look at human history, if you let people do amazing things, and if you give them freedom to do amazing things, guess what? They do amazing things. And that's why we have, the Wright brothers helping us learn how to fly. That's why we have Steve Jobs helping create the smartphone, as well as Apple computers, and all these different people who started from nothing and created these products and services that changed the world in a great way. And so what I care about is making sure that we definitely have an opportunity for people to create great things, if it's drugs or if it's medical care that saves people or anything, or medical ingenuity. We want to make sure people have freedom to do that, and we cut the red tape and we cut the things that get in the way of freedom so that we can have great people doing great things to benefit America and even benefit the world. And so obviously we want people to have freedom to do things with creating drugs or manufacturing drugs. So it's easy to do here. So we don't have to do it in other countries, but it's easy to do it here, and it's also cost effective.
Well, now, when you let's say you get in to Congress, you're not only representing Illinois' 14th district, you're representing the whole United States. You know that, right?
Yeah, in part, yes. So obviously I'm representing the district, but I would have an opportunity to go ahead and vote on legislation that would affect all of America, yes.
And now some states are removing prescriptions that people need to be required. Elderly people that are really sick, that they really need these prescriptions. Let's just say they're opioids and they really need these prescriptions, but they're being removed from them. And these older people are going off in the streets and buying their drugs from the streets, and some of them are overdosing and dying from that stuff, because the stuff in the streets that's being sold in the streets is laced with fentanyl. A couple of my friends wanted me to touch base with you on this. What are you going to do to make these prescriptions come back again?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's a number of things that I want to do. And first off, I just want to say, it is so sad to see the opioid crisis, and we see issues with fentanyl and the horrible things that happen because of fentanyl in the opioid crisis. And so the government really needs to do everything it can to go ahead and stop and end people getting hurt by fentanyl, as well as stopping and going after the opioid crisis, because it really is a serious thing, and we need to go ahead and protect America. And that's one way that we can protect America is attacking fentanyl and then going ahead and seeing what we can do to stop the opioid crisis.
No.
And what I would tell you is that there's a number of things that you can do, and that I would start to do if I were to be in Congress. Is that obviously when it comes to drugs, making sure that we pass legislation that brings more accountability and transparency to pharmacy benefit managers, so that they're not misleading people about what kind of drugs they can buy and what kind of prices they can buy. We also, secondly, we want to make sure that the process for approving a drug is streamlined. That right now it can take up to 10 to 15 years to actually approve a drug. And think about that. That is a lot of years that someone can't use a drug that could be helpful for them. But also, what that does is also increase the costs of creating it tremendously, which then increases the cost for the consumer who needs it or the patient who needs it. And so we want to go ahead and make sure that we're finding ways to streamline that drug approval process to make it easier, because it lowers prices for the creation of that drug and approval of that drug, and then it lowers prices again for that patient. But also it makes it easier for more medical ingenuity, because people realize that it's a lot easier or a lot quicker to go ahead and create a drug and approve it successfully and make sure it's safe. And obviously we always want to make sure anything that's approved is safe and going through the proper protocol, of course. But when something like that becomes easier, then more people will want to get in and try to find a way to create things that help people. So those are a couple of things I would start with. Now, there's a number of other things that you can do we can do to go ahead and change things when it comes to drug prices and when it comes to the medical field. But those are two things that we can start with. And then lastly, right now, if I were to go into the bigger picture, we have a healthcare law in place that I would call the Unaffordable Care Act. People call it the Affordable Care Act. I call it the Unaffordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare.
Yeah, get rid of that.
And the Unaffordable Care Act is extremely unaffordable. There's a lot of red tape that gets in the way of competition. And there's a lot of red tape that affects doctors and makes it harder for them to go ahead and serve their patients. There's a lot of red tape that increases costs and makes it unaffordable for people. And so what we need to do is we need to go ahead and replace the Unaffordable Care Act with something much more effective, where, number one, we protect people with pre-existing conditions. That's very important to me. I've been through Lyme disease and the parasites, and those have been very difficult, so I know what it's like to be down and out. And I want to go ahead and protect people with pre-existing conditions. But then also we want to make sure that we're focusing on free market solutions of competition across the state lines. Making sure there's more transparency amongst the drug industry, streamlining the approval process so that it's done properly and we're able to do it quicker. And a number of other things so that we can go ahead and have a more effective healthcare law that focuses on freedom and creates lower prices so that families can afford it, and then they can use their money for other things that would matter, such as giving opportunities for their kids or saving up for college or being able to do more things that benefit their family.
Now, let me ask you this. Since you're from Illinois 14th District, now, how are you going to fix this Illinois sanctuary status or Chicago sanctuary status?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
So, Illinois, since it's a sanctuary state, or Chicago sanctuary city, how are you going to fix that status?
I think the first thing I would say is that I support the president, Donald J. Trump, and what he is doing with stopping illegal immigration.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go ahead and say a few things on this, okay, Tanya?
Go ahead.
First off, I want to let you know that one of the things that you can do to stop sanctuary cities is, first off, you have to stop illegal immigration. And I believe that we need to finish building the wall. When you look at the 18 and 30-foot barriers and those tall walls that are built and the way that Immigration and Customs Enforcement has those things arranged, they're effective. You look at the data and they are effective and they work and they help people. It also helps us to stop human trafficking so that innocent young girls aren't trafficked up here and used and then raped thousands of times. And so I believe we need to build the wall to go ahead and effectively stop illegal immigration, and we need to thank Immigration and Customs Enforcement and appreciate what they do and make sure they're properly funded. And then we also need to make sure we focus on stopping illegal immigration in any other way that it's happening. And obviously then focus on making sure our immigration system is streamlined so that it actually makes sense and it actually works, and people do it properly and people do it legally. My wife, Lisa, her mother came over from Taiwan as a legal immigrant, and she did it the right way, and I support legal immigration, and I support doing it the right way. So stopping illegal immigration is going to be one of those things, and then reforming the immigration system with all the problems, catch and release problems, problems with not enough judges,
Yes.
problems with making it hard to apply for asylum and refugee status, and all these other loopholes that allow illegal immigrants to come in here and stay. So we need to fix those things. Secondly, what we need to do is to support the president, because he is fighting hard against these sanctuary cities. And one thing, he just recently won a battle in the courts, which then allowed him to go ahead and defund sanctuary cities or withhold federal funds, withhold federal funding from sanctuary cities, which, the federal government has the right to do that, and the president has a right to do that if certain cities are not going to be following federal law. Regarding, helping us go ahead and, catch illegal immigrants that should be caught. And so I want to support the president. And then lastly, any other way where we can, as legislators, fix illegal immigration, to make sure we put pressure on sanctuary cities and also eliminate their ability to be, do sanctuary city policies. Any way we can do that, I want to go ahead and pursue that, because we need to make sure cities and states and communities are following federal immigration law.
Now, let me mention this. Since I am disabled from illegal immigrants, back in 1994, she ran me over with a car, killed me, and, well, let's just say I have 22 broken bones. This happened in Modesto, California. The police let her go, and she was driving drunk, no insurance, no license, a stolen vehicle. Now, because I'm a survivor from this, but she ruined my future.
I'm so sorry about what you went through, Tanya. It's just very sad. It's very sad when you have an illegal immigrant like that come in and do something that hurts you. So I'm so sorry. I'm very, very glad you're okay. I'm very, very glad that you've been able to be successful since then. You have this great podcast and all the other things you're doing. So
8 years running. So I was just saying this because we have a lot of people out there that still haven't got what they needed, but there's those people that do get noticed by the president. What gives them more rights than us people that were affected by these illegal immigrants, and we get nothing. We just thrown on a sideline. We have no voice. That's what I'm saying.
I think this comes down to, do we believe America is a land of justice, or do we not believe America is a land of justice? And I would say, I believe that America should be a land of justice, where people are treated equally under the law. And so if we have someone that gets drunk and drives,
and
if they're an illegal immigrant, if they are going, they hit someone, or they commit an act of violence, they need to be held accountable to the law in the same way that a citizen is held accountable to the law. It is wrong. It is immoral. It is morally wrong to not hold an illegal immigrant accountable to the law here in America if they do something wrong. It is illegal, or it is wrong to do that. And if they commit some sort of serious crime as an illegal immigrant, they need to either be deported or make sure they're held underneath the jurisdiction of the law so they're punished properly. And again, it may vary from specific experience to specific experience, but again, they need to be held accountable to justice.
Yes, those actually, when I was looking up the immigration bills, they go back as 1994. Senator Schumer supported some of these bills that supported that illegal immigrant that hit me with a car.
Yep.
That is fucked up shit. Excuse my language.
Yeah, and it is very crazy. I would say the hypocrisy with the Democratic Party is completely shocking and unbelievable, but it is also slightly not shocking, because there's a lot of hypocrisy and disingenuous behavior, unfortunately, in the leadership of the Democratic Party right now. And so in one sense, that isn't shocking. And it needs to stop. There are people like Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer, and even former President Barack Obama, that
I was going to touch
have
upon
a
Obama.
stronger opinion to stop illegal immigration. And then all of a sudden, President Trump comes into office and he wants to accomplish that same thing that the Democrats used to want to accomplish, and now the Democrats are completely against him. And I think it is an absolute horrible travesty that the Democrats are not doing what's necessary to secure the southern border and protect human trafficking victims and protect those victims from being used for sex trafficking. And if I could even say one other extra thing,
Go ahead.
I think that right now, especially the leadership of the Democratic Party and the Democrat position right now, the position that we should not be securing our southern border and not adequately doing that, the position that is not wanting to adequately fix illegal immigration, that position, the position the Democrats have, I am completely shocked at how uncompassionate the Democrat position is. Because if you think about this, we have these young girls being trafficked up from the southern border through unchecked parts of the border. And there was this one young girl I heard about, and this is a very tough story, but it's a very important story, and I think we all need to hear this, is that she was grabbed and kidnapped and trafficked up by a sex trafficker up through the southern border, but she went through an unchecked part of the border, and they got through without Immigration and Customs Enforcement seeing them, and you know what? He took her straight to New York. And then unfortunately, she was raped 60,000 times.
In New York?
Yes.
Was
and
it
it's horrible.
Was it?
It's horrible.
What? 1 second, Jerry. Was it part of the NXIVM thing?
I do not know. I'm not familiar with the details on that. But what I would tell you is that she was raped 60,000 times, and it was so sad what happened to her. But here's the good news. We got great news for you, is that eventually she was freed. And it's so exciting. She was freed so she could be able to live a free life. And she began working with I think, law enforcement and groups to help try to find and free other sex trafficking victims. But one of the things that she told them one time was that she said this. She said, I just wish that we would have been through a port of entry. I wish we would have been forced with a barrier, like a wall, so we go through a port of entry. Now, this is not an exact quotation. I'm giving you the general idea of what she communicated. But she wished that they would have been forced to go through that port of entry, because if she would have gone through the port of entry, she would have seen a law enforcement officer and reached out for help, and she could have been saved. And so by not having a barrier to stop illegal immigration on the southern border, it's actually uncompassionate to human trafficking victims who need freedom and need a way to go ahead and get help. On top of that, there's other people that come in just for human smuggling. They hire someone to take them across the southern border so that they can come to America. But I've heard a statistic that 60 to 70% of those human smuggling, or the people involved with human smuggling, 60 to 70% of them have some sort of act of violence committed against them, whether it be physical violence or theft or rape or anything. And that's incredibly sad. And so when you have Democrats not wanting to actually finish building the wall, it's incredibly uncompassionate of them, because they're not actually looking at the violence and the tragedies that happen at the southern border, because there's a lack of a barrier and there's a lack of protection of the southern border. And so, in addition to that, you look at catch and release. That needs to be fixed, but the Democrats don't seem to want to fix that.
Yeah, the loopholes.
You look at problems with the immigration system, where people have a hard time waiting in line and getting their cases adjudicated because there are not enough judges. And the Democrats are uncompassionate and not willing to fix that adequately. And so I would say the position that the president has and the Republicans are having right now with wanting to stop illegal immigration and then revise the immigration system so that it works properly, that's a moral and that's a compassionate way of doing things. But I believe the Republicans are doing the moral and compassionate things, and I'm hoping the Democrats would change their mind and come along and do the right thing.
Oh, yes. Question. Now, during Obama's 8 years of presidency, how did it affect your small business?
Yeah, so basically the president, so I started, I'll put it this way, I worked on the side part-time doing music lessons as a musician, because I teach guitar, bass, and drums, and ukulele, excuse me, and I did that privately part-time for a number of years. But then in 2011, I went ahead and started to go ahead and focus on doing that full-time. I did it privately full-time, and then when we hit a number of years later, then I went ahead and started and expanded my music school to a full-fledged business. And that was right before President Obama was out of office and President Trump was elected, thank the Lord. And I'm very glad that President Trump was elected. So what I would tell you, Tanya, is, we saw during President Obama's 8 years a lot of quantitative easing and some bailout programs and a number of things that really caused a historically slow recovery. After we went through our little, Great Recession in 2000, around 2008 and 2009, and 2010, just the recovery that the Obama administration was over with all the policies they have made it very slow. And that put pressure on middle-class families and any class of families. That put pressure on businesses. That put pressure on property owners to be able to actually, get tenants to be in their properties and for business and a number of other things. And so, I think that there's a huge contrast with the way that Obama looked at the economy and did things and the way that the President Trump has done things with the economy. And what we see is that President Trump has done a phenomenal job lowering taxes, cutting regulations, supporting businesses, and making sure it's easier to start a business and own a business so that businesses can thrive and communities can thrive and they can have good things that are affecting them. And even, as I see, in different parts of America, more businesses are popping up and investors are investing and people are creating great things for the community. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for the policies that President Trump has as opposed to the policies that President Obama did economically.
Can I tell you something? So
yes.
my family is one of the many millions of families that was affected by Obama's policies when he became president. My husband was working a full-time job. We were a middle-class family. My mom had a full-time job too. But because Obama became president, the Obamacare came into effect. My husband lost his full-time status and went down to part-time status. We were struggling to make ends meet. My mom's job, she worked at a pharmaceutical company, CVS Pharmacy, in Mount Prospect, Illinois. She lost her job due to a illegal immigrant that took her job.
Well, I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we need to. What do you think about vetting illegal immigrant? What do they call it? Damn it, DML always mentions it. Somebody always mentions it. You know, E-Verify. What do you think about E-Verify?
Yeah. So I was thinking you were going to go there. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah. I really believe that E-Verify is a good thing. I think that if we have a country where we're making sure that people who are having jobs are legally allowed to work here, that's right. Because again, we should be committed to justice. We should be committed to the rule of law. But also, I believe that E-Verify should be also part of a bigger package or a bigger part of immigration reform, where we again stop illegal immigration, we streamline the legal immigration process so we have a system that works, we stop catch and release, we make sure that if you're an asylum seeker or a refugee seeker, you have an opportunity to apply and get your case adjudicated in a reasonable amount of time instead of taking years. You know, we want to make sure that those dreamers that are here, that were brought here as kids, it wasn't their choice to go and come here. Their parents brought them here, but those dreamers that we have, the Congress does their job so that they can be legalized, so they can stay here and be there with their families, and as well as making sure that those 11 to 22 million illegal immigrants, while it was wrong they came over the border illegally, that those people who have been here for a while, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, those people that have been here for a while and haven't committed some sort of serious crime, that they have a path towards legalization, so that they can at least stay ingrained in American society, but then also legally be allowed to work and move on, so that they can really begin to integrate into American society and understand what America's all about. So I believe that E-Verify needs to be part of that. Just because we shouldn't have a nation where people can jump the border and work illegally. That's just wrong. It's very important that we have a moral and just system here in America, and that comes down to following the rule of law.
Jerry, do you want to continue with this interview? I'd have to start another podcast. You'd have to hold on for a sec.